Patient advocacy is something that has never been more important than it is today for people with rare disease, and especially for those of us living with bleeding disorders. My name is Jonathan James, and I'm with Hope Charities. Really glad to come to you today to talk a little bit about Hope on the Hill, which is an advocacy day that we were really privileged to be able to do this year in June, and talk a little bit about some of the advocacy issues that are going on related to the current environment that we see happening in Washington, D.C. The news is sometimes helpful and sometimes really unhelpful. And it's in moments like this that we realize that we really need to work together to communicate as much as possible, to learn as much as we can so that we know how to advocate for the needs of our community in the ways that are the most impactful. I don't know if you're like me, but I've been a little bit struggling with some disappointment and disheartenment a little bit about just seeing so much progress that we've made over the last 25 or 30 years sort of be degraded over the last year or so, just in terms of restructuring. It's a temptation to feel very frightened and fearful. But I'm here to give you some good news. Here's some hope for you. Hopefully this is going to give you some energy to look at things through a different lens. And that is that there are still a lot of work to do and a lot of work being done. A lot of people don't understand this, but there's over 300 bills that have actually been passed through Congress this year since January 1. That's amazing. There's a lot of decisions being made. And I believe that we shouldn't have any decision about us being made without us. It's important for us to have a contribution to the conversation. We've got an opportunity uniquely, I think, in a generational timeline right now for us to be able to contribute to the negotiations that are going on for those of us living with rare and chronic illnesses. And today I've invited a couple of guests to join me to talk a little bit about our experiences and our adventures with meeting with legislative offices. And I hope that this really helps to give some framework for what our ideals are. And first, I'd like to introduce Jim Romano. Jim, it's great to see you today. Thanks so much for joining me on the Hope on the Hill podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's great to be here. And we had a great day in June. It was on June 4th. It was fantastic.
So true. We've been talking about doing this for a long time. We've done a lot of these meetings behind the scenes, just kind of being supportive, but this year really felt like a unique opportunity for us to really drive and dig into some of the initial issues that were so important as change was happening. Little did we know in our planning a year ago of this event that so much change was going to be happening. But I did feel that there seemed to be a good reception about our issues and the things that we were bringing to light. A lot of the work that we have done over the last several years with PBM reform, specifically patient choice for pharmacy and for products, is a driving force for us at this moment as a priority for our legislative action. It's been on our agenda for a few years, but really there seems to be like a reception to that conversation in a different way than what I've seen in years past. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. I know in the meetings that I attended, and some of them are the same as that you attended, that offices were very, very receptive to the fact that there needs to be change in the PBM space.
Yeah.
You can see this every day. States are attuning to it. The federal government is attuning to it in Congress. The administration, I think, wants to make changes. Change is coming. We just have to make sure that it's the right change and that it's having the right benefit. We know that there's a lot of proposals out there, and there's proposals tinker around the edges, but I think there's a hunger for real reform. And I think that Congress is warming to that, from what I can tell.
It's so true. We had a great turnout. We were targeting specifically, we went in with a very clear strategy that I thought was important for this activity for us to do. And that was that we wanted to really try our best to target leadership in committees. And I think that that's something that really is sometimes missed. It's overlooked. It's like, let's just all go and share our story. And that's so important. But I think we need to share our story with the right people to get progress. And so we targeted about 30 different offices. We were really fortunate to have about 35 or 40 advocates that came with us to Hope on the Hill on June 4th. And at that time, we actually had, I think, 50 offices that we met with in total during the day, as well as a congressional briefing that was really powerful. There were some moments in there that really stood out to me as really productive and good conversations. Again, we were primarily focused on PBM reform in the context of patient choice for pharmacy, but we also had a chance to talk about some other issues like the Help Copays Act, for instance, as well as some of the funding issues that are necessary for our community. And in spite of all of the rhetoric you hear on the news, it seemed to me that there was a different kind of reception, that both sides of the fence were really excited to have us there and were listening differently than what I've seen in years past.
Yes, I think there's always an interest in coming up with the bills and issues that they're actually making common ground on. I know it's not sexy in that it's not going to make the evening news, that two congressmen work together from different sides of the aisle to craft a bill that gets 85% of the Congress's support. But those things do happen, and I think it's going to happen with PBM reform, and especially with the patient choice of specialty pharmacy. I think that's so far we've gotten very good feedback on a potential legislation to ensure that. I also think that there was interest in the AFP issue, which is the alternative funding programs. We are working with congressional office, Congressman Morgan Griffith of Virginia on a potential letter, and Congresswoman Lucy Bath of Georgia. We talked. It's interesting what comes out of these days. One of our patient advocates started talking about patient choice of pharmacy in TRICARE. That's something that probably doesn't need legislation, and it's a recent development. But we brought it up, and it came out in meetings, and we've had some. We're having discussions with other congressional offices regarding that. So it was an excellent day. And we did get a lot of discussion on different types of coverage and access issues.
Well, you mentioned that. It makes me think about, this is kind of our group the day of, which was really fun. And we had a great showing. I think of a lot of people came out. One of the other conversations you mentioned specifically about the TRICARE issues, we also had some conversations about gene therapy at the end of one of our meetings that I thought was just so impactful. I have felt like for a while that gene therapy may very well be one of those things that doesn't, it's very fragile right now. It could go by the wayside, and unfortunately, we don't want to see all that research, really go to waste or not to be utilized, because it could help a lot of people and save a lot of money in a lot of cases. But we actually, just to have those kind of conversations populate sort of off the cuff. It wasn't our main agenda point, but it really did sort of come up as an opportunity for us to be able to connect with folks, and I thought that was a really good thing too.
It was excellent, and you always tell the staffers who have an expanded knowledge of policy and having those discussions. And I know that we were in Congressman Bill Arrakis' office. He's the Republican chair of the Rare Disease Caucus, which is a powerful caucus that people ask what they think about health legislation. So it's very important, and so it was a very good conversation on gene therapy.
Yeah, and we had this congressional briefing, which for people who've maybe never attended one of these, I've been told before by you and others, Jim, that at our briefing we invite all of the offices to come and listen to our issues that we were talking about. And one of the things that people always say is that, like, man, if you can get 50 offices or 50 people to show up, it's a big deal. We had over 100 people in that room. It was packed to the gills. It was so amazing. So there seemed to be a hunger for this information, that people wanted to understand, what does patient health, a patient-first healthcare look like. And Brittany Gillespie did a fantastic job, along with Mark Zaturka and Donovan, all did a very, very good job sharing their stories. Mark Zaturka specifically gave a story in his presentation that was just, there was not a dry eye in the room when he was done. It was such a powerful moment to be able to kind of hear his experience of seeing someone that was really truly harmed and lost their
Mhm.
life as a result of delays in deliveries of their medication. And
Yeah,
it was so really just heart wrenching. But there was so much reception. It was like there was people were just starving for the information that we were bringing, and you could see that in the energy in the room. You could
exactly.
feel that in the feedback, right?
You absolutely could. It was great. And I think Mark Zaturka, as you said, did a phenomenal job conveying stories as a person who works very closely with patients through a specialty pharmacy network, how he watched somebody die, basically because they did not get the care they needed from the specialty pharmacy, and that the PBM threw obstacle out of obstacle. So when this person had an accident, that
Yeah.
was it, and it's very sad, and that's why it really highlights the need for reform. Donovan, again, she awesome in discussing, how AFPs affected him, and then Brittany, again, also fantastic, showing really how choice would be important to her and her family.
Yeah. We made a scene too. We had a whole bunch of people in scooters, and that was really fun, and also just brought a lot of attention, I think, to the awareness of the fact that there's people living every single day that have challenges with
Yeah,
these issues and are living through these difficulties. And I really feel like that it was important for us to be able to address people's mobility challenges. But I think that there has been sort of this overarching feeling like, oh, there's a treatment for that, right? Isn't it taken care of? And it was like, no, listen, people are still struggling every single day. And it's important that you understand what these folks are living with day in and day out. And not just that it's painful and expensive, but also that if it's so specialized that if we don't get the care we need in the timeline that we need it, it can be really, again, you can lose 25 years of progress just purely because the lack of attention to the details, right?
absolutely. And I think it was a special day also because you had that focus, and people were really sharing heartfelt stories. I mean, and I think that really touched a lot of the members, and really showed back on what a life and death situations, not getting your medication when you need it at the prescription level. That there's also stories about these PBMs cutting back on the number of units they're gonna sell, give you, and what they think you should have, not what your doctor says you need to have. So I think that really the stories got to the offices, and I was very, very happy on that.
Yeah.
I also was excited because some people were first timers.
Hmm.
They got one family, the Halls, Trey and Ashley Hall. They got to meet their senator, and
Yeah.
they did a fantastic job, and they really enjoyed it. And I'm hoping they get more involved because it really connected with them. I love one of my favorite part of my jobs is to take somebody who hasn't done this before and do their first meeting and think, man, they really enjoy, and when they get it and they make that relationship for the first time, it's very powerful to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah, and you say that about the first time is so key. And one of the things that I'm super inspired about is that it's also about the work that we do from here, right? It's not just about the work that
Yeah,
we're doing just in this one moment in time that's sealed, but it's also about the work that we're doing on an ongoing basis. And I feel like that, Brittany Gillespie did a fantastic job at sharing her story during the congressional briefing of the challenges and the hurdles and the harms that have happened to her family. And she spoke at the congressional briefing, but also had some incredible meetings with Congressman Neil Dunn and some of the activities that they've been doing. But she's a great example of somebody who's built a relationship with Tucker and their staff through the years, and it's not just a one-time thing, but it's something that happens on and on. And so, I invited Brittany to join us live for this conversation on this webinar today to talk a little bit more about her experience. And Brittany, you are one of my heroes. You did such a fantastic job. And as always, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us for this conversation today.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. That was definitely an experience. Thank you for having me. But I was not as prepared as I should have been because the stories before mine, man, that really took the breath out of me. It was definitely difficult to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, I think we all know it, but it's something about the pressure of an event like that, that when you get in a compressed space with all these people who are really hungry to hear the stories and you tell those stories in a bite-sized moment, I mean, especially, hearing the struggles of the AFP thing that Donovan has gone through, and then hearing the struggles of Mark losing his friends, his friend passing away too early because of not having factor in a timely manner. And then, I mean, you did such a great job at bringing it all home with your story. If I remember correctly, part of what you communicated was that, you guys didn't receive factor for, I want to say it was 14 months or something like that. It was so delayed that it went on forever, right?
It was 11 and a half months. It
11
was
months. Yeah.
almost to the 1 year mark. And that's when I heard the stories of that boy dying. Like, I just looking back, and I just kept wondering to myself, insurance didn't know that I didn't have this factor that was provided to us. Like, they just thought
Mm,
we didn't have anything. And what were they thinking? Like, how I, I still can't even wrap my head around how we were treated that way. Like, how was it even
mhm.
ethical? And I felt it was just a lot of emotions hearing that story and then thinking that could have been us. And
Yeah.
my son's 10 years old. I'm like, how in today's world, with the amazing medications that we have, does somebody lose their life over this? It was very
Yeah.
difficult to sit in that room and to hear those stories. And like you said, that there wasn't a dry eye. And then, Jonathan, I don't know if I told you this. We in the elevator immediately. I had to leave to go meet Neil Dunn's office.
Yeah.
Dr. Dunn was there. We had a great little chat with him. But I had people stopping me in the elevator, telling me that they could not believe everything we had just spoken on. People I didn't even see in the room. They must have been
Wow.
thinking that. It was definitely a beautiful moment. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Oh my gosh, it was such a privilege. And honestly, when you're organizing these things, you never know really what's going to come out of it. But I do feel like that, one of the things that we tried to focus on was also, as much as there's, you just can't possibly prepare for everything. You just don't know. But I
Mhm.
felt like Jim did such a great job of, like, in the training beforehand, and really just trying to prepare every advocate for knowing at least the framework for what we were trying to go in and help communicate. It's not just about, like, yeah, my life's terrible because I have this bleeding disorder, but it's also about, really about, this is something that you can do something about. You're inviting them into helping you, and making them aware, and that takes some education, right? It's not just about your story, but it's also about just the process. So how did you feel about, like, some of the training that we did ahead of time? And this is a picture of Jim giving his best up there, at the morning of, but Jim did such a good job with that. But how did you feel, Brittany? Because you this isn't your first rodeo. You've done some stuff like this before, and what was your takeaway from some of that?
It was definitely very well organized. I was very appreciative of all the information. I am not a political person. I don't know. Before I started battling with insurance, I didn't know the steps to take. So I definitely feel that y'all did one of the best jobs I've ever seen as far as what to do, what to say, what to expect was the biggest thing. Because the first time I went, I was begging and pleading for help from anybody. This time around, I knew what to say, how to say it. I felt confident in myself to portray that
Mhm.
conversation, actually start the conversation off properly. So I think y'all did a really good job.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a team effort. Jim, you did such a great job at being able to help everybody understand what to expect, how to go about the day, how to have the conversations, what to say, what not to say. But Jim, you've been doing this for, gosh, what, 30 years, almost 20? I don't want to age you, but it's been a little bit. How did you feel like that, even just the preparatory and even the preparation of all the advocates went for you? You're muted, Jim. I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you. We lost your microphone.
The team that I work with did a
Mm,
phenomenal job. We all, divided out the work and make sure everybody had great meetings. No, my teams had the best meetings, but no, just I work you. If you're on a team that I put
mhm.
you on, and you're coming to Washington, I'm going to work you. and you're gonna have about 3 or 4 more, or at least 2 or 3 more meetings than some other people, because I feel like this is our only time. This is like you're making a commitment, and my commitment to you is that you're going to have the meetings. You're going to know you're going to know what to ask them. You're going to and then we're going to have a good conversation with the office. And I have to say, I think from the feedback that I took from everybody on after the event, when we had that dinner and everybody, the electricity in that room was inspiring. And I mean, just catching. If you were in there, everybody was excited. What do we do from here? I don't think anybody had a bad meeting. I mean, sometimes you have people, okay, thanks a lot for coming, but I didn't even hear some of that. It all sounded great, and I was excited for everybody.
One of my favorite things was that final night, we had a chance to debrief as a team, and there was this sense of like relief, and you didn't have the pressure of like what's going to happen, but it was just this. I think there was a lot of learnings that actually came out of our conversation, even from just the debrief time, where we got a chance to really listen and hear what all of the different advocates really felt, and what were their wins, what were the things that really came out of their meetings that we could take action on next. And then also just contributing to the future. Like you said, everybody was really motivated. And Brittany, you've done a fantastic job at being able to really bring a sense of relationship to these conversations with Tucker as the healthcare advisor to Neil Dunn's office, not just in these moments, in the big moments like this, but you've been managing relationships with them even outside of these meetings. And that's why I always say the success of every meeting is the meeting before the meeting, and these things build on each other over time. And so it's not just about an event, like can you attend an event or can you be a part of something just to share your story? Sure, everybody could kind of do that. But what does it take to really do the work beyond just that one event? And I know you're planning communication. We've already been talking a lot about the things behind the scenes that you're talking to their office about. But tell me a little bit about that. Like, how is this motivating you for your next steps in building that relationship with Congressman Dunn's office?
I am really lucky. I don't know if it's just that, Representative Dr. Dunn is the best or his office is the best. Honestly, I don't know what it is about that office. I have spent a lot of time emailing back and forth, letting them know I'm coming in 4 weeks. I'm coming in 3 weeks. Hey, did you see this? Did you see that? I ask lots of questions. Every time I go in there, I walk out of that room feeling better than before I even entered. They're very supportive. They're on board. They're willing to fight. But when I first met with them, it wasn't like that. When I first met with Tucker, he was very reserved and quiet, and it took some time to get to know him. Even this last meeting after Dr. Dunn left, Tucker and I sat, we talked about a concert that he just went to down in Panama City and how much fun him and his girlfriend had. And it was just a personal conversation. And so I think by just taking those extra steps of, hey, how are things going? Have you seen this? Have a good day, that sort of thing. Like getting to know the person as an individual.
Yes.
Versus expecting, because they do. Their job is to work for the community, but they are still people. So
that's right.
Just getting to know them and having that relationship with them. They all live in your town too. Like Dr. Dunn lives down the road. So it's definitely something by being proactive in your own community. I think helps build those relationships too.
It's so true. And the thing that's really been remarkable, Jim, you and I have been meeting with Tucker and Dr. Dunn's office for a couple of years now, just on different issues. And I really feel like that every meeting has gotten better. And Jim, help me understand this, but I think this is accurate. An accurate assessment is that people that work in DC a lot of times don't even want to invest a lot of energy in somebody unless they know that you're present and reliable. If you're somebody that they can count on to get advice from when they need it on that topic, like that's an interest to them, right? They want that relationship long-term, not just a one-time thing, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And they wanted to have experts to go to. And here's a great example. I know in another group I work with, It's it's taken 2 years, but now when we get an action alert or something like, oh, we need you to sign this letter, and I send it over to them, Michael gets back to me and says, oh, yeah, okay, no problems. We trust you guys. So it's so important to build that trust with the staff person. I mean, and we've done that, I think, with Tucker. We've pushed when we needed to. We've held back when we've needed to, and it helps with him because we're not, a broken record 3 times a day. But making demands, and so we've built with Tucker. That's what it takes. With other offices, it's different strategies, but finding out how the office operates and what kind of style that they have is important, and it does help you in the long run. Reaching out with everybody and making this and making a relationship important.
So good.
I will say that it's been I think Brittany's done a phenomenal job, and I think that we are, some of this stuff it does take a while. Getting a bill through Ledge Council with the lawyers. I'm hoping that we hear something back in the next. They go on recess this week, so hopefully that gives people some time to catch up. So get any more questions out of Ledge Council, and so we can start moving on and looking for. I know we've met with some offices. One of them we met with was Congressman Cleo Fields. There's an interest there of him becoming lead Democrat on the bill. So anyway, this is going to be a great week to start making some headway in the nuts and bolts of it, like making sure the bills moving through the process, seeing where the letter is, those type of times.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm aware of, and something that I'm I think that is important. I get questions from people in the community a lot about, what exactly are, we talking about in terms of some of the other broader issues that are going on in our community, such as the CDC Blood Safety Division, such as, women's diagnosis and treatment, such as, AFPs we've talked about, the Help Copays Act, which was an agenda item that we did, highlight for all of these offices. There's a plethora of things that we could choose to talk about, and that we did choose on a couple occasions too. But I do think it's important to pick your battles, right, Jim? You kind of have to prioritize to some degree what you're going to be talking about to these guys, because they can only really handle so much at one conversation, right?
There's so much of a bandwidth. It's always good to have 2 to 3 issues that you touch with a couple asks. I think it's important to notice that, Hope Charities has their legislative agenda, and we are leading the effort on those first 2 points, this choice in specialty pharmacy and in the AFP letter, and other groups such as the National Bleeding Disorders Foundation. They take the lead on other issues, and HFA takes the lead on some issues. So I think it's how everybody works together really well. Not that they can't, we don't recommend, ask them to help us on our issues and we help them on theirs. So I think it's important to do a couple of things very well, and pushing forward, because we're all going to need to be working together on things.
Well, and to your point, that's something I feel like that I have seen. We've been on a lot of calls internally and externally, even with some of these other groups in a different way than I have in the last 10 years, right? I mean, there is seeming to be more collaboration and more effort. We all need to be able to have our voice in this, but there's a lot of other issues coming down the pike. You have the accumulator adjuster issue, obviously 340B reform is not far around the corner. We have obviously still the HHS restructuring, which is still going to unfold a bit. And then you have women getting preventative treatment. There's still a fail first issue with a safe step policies that we need to think about. And then I think that there's potential for room to do even more. But the ideas that we bring really are, I think progress is dependent upon our ability to be seen as reliable with these particular agents. I think it was Dane Christensen that said that there was, in this particular government, this particular Congress specifically, that there was something like 70 or 90, I don't know if I'm getting the number right, people that are brand new to this, right? They were replaced, or they were brand new people in Congress, right? And offices where there was
70
turnover.
new members, yeah.
70 new members,
There's
yeah.
70 new
And
members, yeah.
yeah. And so with that considered, there's a lot of education even for those members of Congress to know where we stand and what our needs are. And so, I think that that's something that we're going to be working on, not just in this one moment, not just because we went on June 4th, but also because we have an opportunity, and really it's incumbent upon us as a responsibility as members of this community to really be able to try to communicate as well and effectively as we can for the needs of our community going forward. And that relationship is really going to be everything. So for anybody who's looking to say, man, I would love to get involved, Brittany, do you have any advice or thoughts or feedback on anybody that you maybe thinking out there like, man, I want to be like Brittany someday? How do I be like Brittany? What would you tell them that they need to do?
Definitely just start local. Like that's definitely where we all need to start, is start getting to for me, it's Tallahassee, which I'm already banging down their doors. And then education, if it wasn't for Jim, I asked Jim so many questions. It's embarrassing that I'm just like, how does this work?
It's great.
So it has to go through this to get through that. And he's like, oh gosh, I'm sure. But definitely just starting local, like getting to know like who you are voting into office, like who is out there in your community, why are you putting them in those positions, and then just educating yourself on these things. Honestly, I don't know, Jonathan, if you know this, I had no clue about the copay accumulator and that it was even happening to me. If it wasn't for you giving a speech like 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, that's not a thing. And sure enough, it happened the very next year. And then of course the safe step or step therapy situation, and then it just started to unravel. So it makes me wonder how many people aren't even aware that these things are happening to them. So
Right.
Education and just being proactive.
It's so true. It's not
No, you're absolutely right.
sometimes it's not always these things catch you on your heels. They're happening to you and you can't untether from them quickly, but being educated can help. And I do still say, I mean, talking about Jim taking the brunt of all of our questions regularly, because he does that for me too. There is a sense of it's not what you know, it's who you know. We've seen actually a lot of people in our community that have been harmed by these policies, and we're deep in the weeds of making permanent things like cashing out their retirement savings and selling homes and property and stuff like that to pay for medications that probably could have been prevented if they would have just asked questions and reached out to the community first. Not to say that these things are going on. These policies are bad policies that are happening every day to folks, but you don't know what you don't know. And so, big kudos to you, Brittany, for just educating yourself and diving deep and being a part of the community and getting invested in these things, because it really does. Just hearing some of the terminology, even if you don't really understand it all, or if it all doesn't apply to you, just hearing it sometimes provides an awareness that helps you to be prepared if it happens to you. And you're a great example of not only that, but then also diving in and trying to sort it out together has been huge. So it's good.
Brittany's fantastic.
I love all this compliments I'm getting over
Brittany
here.
praise. That's right.
I love Brittany.
This. Yeah. You didn't know this is what you were coming for today, did you?
No,
We just wanted to have you on the show just to get you to, build you up.
I love this.
You're fantastic. You did a great job.
It's definitely a learning experience, and I'm so blessed that we have the community that we have. Like, we have hope. Yes. We have this information, this education, because I think y'all know my grandfather died of a bleed. Like, we are a very long bleeding disorder generational family, and just what little education my aunts and cousins have, it's just so wonderful that we have community that we do now.
Mm-hmm. We're really spoiled in many ways. I mean, Jim and I work with a lot of other rare disease groups and chronic disease groups. And there really isn't a sense of community quite like you see in hemophilia in other disease states. We've really been blessed with a strong sense of community. You've heard me say this a bunch of times, that the best thing about being diagnosed with a bleeding disorder is a community that comes along with it. But you can have the best Ferrari in the garage, but if you don't use the keys to get in it and drive it somewhere, then you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to benefit from it, right? And so we have this community. It's important for people to get involved, even if it's not your favorite thing to do. Sometimes it's the thing you have to do to be able to, help you get from point A to point B. But I would say being a part of the conversation isn't as scary and daunting as some people might think. I mean, sometimes you just got to throw yourself in, right?
Definitely.
Jim, what would you say as far as, anybody that might be listening to this right now thinking, man, how do I be like Brittany? I want to be like Brittany when I grow up.
Well, I think Brittany said it best. If you want to get involved, you just make the decision to get involved. Have a story and make sure you and work with you or myself or Brittany in vetting the story, making sure it works great. There was a person who came who this is a great story. I had never met her. She had sent her story to us. While it was a very compelling story, we needed to hone it a little more to what we were talking about. She and I had a phenomenal phone call. I loved, she had the enthusiasm. She was raring to go. We had a good talk. We edited it. But then as we talked more, that's when we discovered a lot about what's going on with TRICARE. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we need to tie this in together. And it was phenomenal. So I would say that if you want to get involved, and we need everybody involved, is to contact Hope, work with us. I always tell people, get to know who your congressman is and make sure they get to know who you are. Mm-hmm. And Brittany's done that. Brittany's a great example of that. Mm-hmm. I'm having an advocacy day for another group I work with. My local congressman's coming to talk to them for 15 minutes. It's building those relationships so that you can call on them to do those kind of things. And make sure that when they see you, they say, oh, it's Jim, there's Jim with hemophilia. And they know that what community you're with, that you're passionate for it, that you're not going to, I don't want to say fight them, but that you're going to work with them. Yeah. There might be some disagreements, and now's the perfect time, but you have to find things that you're going to agree on. And I think that's important also. And, you have to respect the differences and the position that they're in.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, to just know that, I say this all the time. Brittany, you probably heard me say this a dozen times throughout this process. It's just that it's not really about politics. It's about policies. And I would go a step further to say it's even about people more than policies. No progress happens without people. And, our stories really matter. And there's something that I think is just so beautiful, is that this is a great opportunity. You might not be able to donate monetarily, but if you can give an hour to just send an email or call your local representatives, work with us to get prepared, maybe to share your story. Even we can write articles and publish them in magazines or blogs and websites and stuff, and we can share that information with legislators. Like, those types of things are really, really important. We're getting ready to send out our latest issue of the Hope Factor magazine, which has some fantastic stories in here of people that have really been struggled with certain issues and had in harm's way. There's all kinds of ways that you can advocate every day. It's not really just about waiting till there's an event to go to. And then also just trusting the group you're with. Like you said, maybe your passion is like the adjuster accumulator issues, like your number one focus problem that you've experienced. You probably would do really well to get involved with NBDF, because they're championing that cause on that issue specifically. If you've had a problem that you were forced to use a pharmacy, that even after they committed many different medical errors, even though you pounded their front door like Brittany did to try to get them to send you the medication that the prescription the doctor wrote for them. That if you asked and you pleaded for them to do the right thing and they still didn't do the right thing, but you were forced to that being your only option to get your prescription from because it was a vertically integrated pharmacy. Maybe Hope is the right home for you to get involved with that, and it could rotate. You might need to go to all of it. Who knows? But it's really not about politics. It's about trying to make positive change in these policies because of the people that have really, unfortunately, been affected in a terrible way by these issues. And so, Brittany, thank you so much for your bravery and your willingness to jump in to the conversation with us. This was our inaugural Hill Day as an organization. First time we brought a group of patients to DC. And it was really, you did a fantastic job. Your message was spoken with clarity. It was spoken with passion, and it was spoken with heart. And like you said, just even in the elevator conversations, you gave an elevator speech twice that day, probably about 50 times that day, honestly, for really counting. But you gave a literal elevator speech after your speech in front of the people. But whether or not that's in those moments or whether it's just picking up the phone, you mentioned earlier going to a fundraiser locally, just being around these folks. They are people too. Legislators are people too. We should make a shirt maybe. But they're not just machines. They can't just purely operate. And you might feel like that there's a sense of justice about your issue, but they care more about the person than they do about the issues sometimes, because they're being bombarded with issues every day, every 5 seconds. The minute we walked out of their office, somebody else came in. I think the day we were there was a realtor group that was like on the Hill big, so like they're listening to me talk about like, how important it is to, fix pharmacy problems. And the next person that walks in is like, I can't get my brokerage fees right. So, they're just constantly bombarded by issues. But I had a friend of mine years ago who used to say, Jonathan, he goes, all things, considered equal, people will do business with people that they like. Mm-hmm. And then he said, and all things being unequal, people do business with people they like. His point was, he said, it really, you cannot discount the fact that your relationship, your connection, and maybe you don't have the right connect, maybe you don't have the right, things that you pick up on, but it's good to continually as a community, continue to try to approach these folks with the same issues. And I do believe progress is at hand. I believe we have a unique opportunity to educate the new members, but also we have a generational changes happening right now in terms of policy initiatives that we want to make certain that our voice is heard in the context of these changes, not to be having to look in the rearview mirror and wish that we would have spoken up when the time came. So any last thoughts, Brittany? I know you got so much depth there to share all kinds of stuff, but anything you think of right now?
I definitely think it was the best time on the Hill that I've ever had, for sure. I think you're correct about changes being made in the past. The meetings weren't, the whole atmosphere was just different. I think we were very well prepared in the words that we should use so they understood our concerns. They were very willing to listen. There's a lot of compassion too, but honestly, I think you're right. The building of the relationship, because multiple times I was asked, are you with this group? Are you with that group? And do y'all work together? And I was like, we had to explain what hope was. And it was just really encouraging. The first time I went to Washington, it was very difficult because it was just deny with insurance and not being able to receive medication. And I just remember being so heartbroken coming back because I started calling Jim and realizing this wasn't going to happen. I thought I could go up there, tell my story, the whole world's going to change. Jim's like, nope, that's not how it's going to go. So I really think this time, I think you were in the car with us. I said, we don't even have to go back. Everything that we were asking for, I feel like it's going to happen because it was such an optimistic event. It was great.
So beautiful. It was just your charismatic nature. That's what everybody was just like, whatever Brittany says, we're doing.
Pass all the bills that I'm asking. Just give it to me, please.
That's right. What were you going to say, Jim?
a bill.
I was just going to say it moves slow. And the moment we left, somebody else came in. And it's all about follow up, follow up, follow up. And as Jonathan knows, we've been following up regularly with the offices, seeing where they are. It's a recess right now. So hopefully, hopefully, I know that people get caught up then. So we're, again, continuously making progress every day, advancing and not falling back.
So good. So good. Well, thank you both for joining me for this and for being a part of this conversation, both on the Hill itself and also after the fact. We've gotten dozens of emails and calls from people already that were part of this event with us in DC that have said that they've gotten good feedback from their legislative offices. We've already had to provide clarity to a few that thought we were part of a clinic or something else, so we had to help them understand what we were doing. But that's good. Yeah, that's right. That's good. That's a good problem to have because you want them asking us questions so that we can provide them with the accurate information when we need to. So, man, I know anything is possible when I've got people like you guys a part of the team. So, Jim, thank you so much as always for all your hard work and efforts. And Brittany, thank you so much for just being you and doing a great job at sharing your story and really advocating for your son like you do. You are not just a passionate advocate, but you're really a champion for our community. And without your help, I don't think we would go as far as we can. So thank you both so much for joining me for this today.
Thank you. That's very cool.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Jonathan.
Well, I'm excited about the future. Jem said it's all about follow up. And so I want to make certain that you know that it's important for us to continue this conversation. And so you might be thinking to yourself, man, what do I do from here? How can I get involved? I didn't even know this was going on. How do I get involved? So Hope on the Hill for us is not just an event. It's something that we do every day. And there's a lot of things that you can do. If you have a story, I would love to hear your story. We would love to know what things that you've experienced have been harmful to you and your family in terms of maybe patient choice related to what pharmacy you use. Maybe it's related to patient choice related to what product you use. You've been denied access to a product. Maybe you've been denied access to a treatment center or utilizing your HTC. Maybe you've had issues related to insurance and AFPs and your employer plans, all of the things that we're advocating for that we've talked about today. If you've had any of these issues, we want to know about those issues. So please email us at events@hope-charities.org. And we would love to hear your story so we can understand more in depth about how to plug you into the right place. We don't want to waste your time, and we want to make certain that you are placed in an area that you can make the most impact with your story. So we want to help you do that. I'm going to give a shameless plug for a few things. One is I want to make certain that you know that we have events going on all the time. You can always sign up for our Hope Factor magazine that I mentioned earlier on our website, but also you can join us for our in-person annual conference happening in November 6th through 9th. More information is coming out on our website very, very soon. So I need you to check on the website in the next few weeks here. We're going to be releasing the dates for that November 6th through 9th in Orlando, Florida. We're all going to be getting together. We're going to be doing more training about how to advocate on a daily basis, how to get to know your legislators, how to build relationships, how to get your message across, how to craft your story in such a way that's engaging and something that actually points to the issues at hand that can produce progress. So those things will be great. Jem will be there. We'll have Dane Christensen joining us as well. And Brittany will be there as well. We'll have lots of advocates that'll be there to share their experiences while we prepare for next June in 2026 to do this again. And we want you to be a part of that. So the journey is happening every day, and we want to get to know you better, as well as we want to help you get to know your legislative offices better as well. And we need all the support we can do, can garner to get together to continue to advocate for what it means to create positive change for our community. I think we have a lot of things on the cusp here. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on some strategic things because I think there's a lot more that we can be strategizing about. We're going to do another webinar like this, though, in just a few months and talk a little bit more deeply about next steps. But I do think that there's some things that we're going to see come around the corner here that's going to have a unique opportunity for us to speak up and share about the issues that matter to us, to our community and to each one of us individually. So thank you so much for joining me today as a part of this advocacy special episode webinar to talk about these issues. And once again, a big thank you to Brittany Gillespie and Jim Romano for joining me for this. I think there's so much more work to be done, but there's a lot of hope in my heart because of the people that are doing it with us. So thank you so much for listening to this today. We hope to hear from you soon. Check out our website for more information, and we'll be in touch. See you on the next one. Take care now.